one of the NFL draft is in the books, and the Commanders, they trade back out of the number 11 overall spot, dropping down to 16 and picking up a couple of additional picks. But they did get their man, Penn State wide receiver Jahan Dotson. Guys like him, this is a player that they were targeting earlier on. He's versatile, he has good hands, and he gets separation. I had the chance to catch up with him earlier, and, well, he got the good news from head coach Ron Rivera, and here's how that conversation went down. Jahan, welcome. Here's the thing, drafted in the first round, and the very first Washington Commander to be drafted. Have you grasped what that means?
I haven't, honestly. It hasn't hit me yet. I can't even believe it. I can't even put it into words. I'm just super excited right now. I'm surrounded by a lot of family, and it's like the greatest moment ever, greatest moment of my life.
What was it like when you got that phone call? What was the reaction in the room?
Yeah, I couldn't believe it, literally. I got the phone call, I had to step away, and Coach Rivera introduced himself, and I honestly just couldn't believe it. It was crazy, but I'm super thankful that he's taking a shot on me and they're giving me a chance, and I can't wait to get to work.
So what was said in that conversation?
He told me it's Coach Rivera from the Washington Commanders, and we're going to take you here in these next couple picks. And I honestly didn't know what to say for a little bit. I was kind of just speechless for a little bit, but I just told him I appreciate him and just thank you.
You know, coming into this, obviously, it's a huge dream. So much hard work and sacrifice by you to be able to get to this point, for your family to kind of help you through that process as well. What is the emotion to say, you know what, I made it? It's paying off.
Yeah, it's crazy because I still remember the days when I was playing youth football, and it all just, like, all the sacrifice, the hard work, everything that you put into it, it's kind of all paying off on this one day. So it's crazy. I don't even know what to say about it, but I'm just so happy. I can't even explain the feeling.
Offensive coordinator Scott Turner, he's had to sit and wait his turn for the first few years here in the draft. They went pretty heavy defense, but they brought in Carson Wentz. And one of the things that they said they really needed to do was to make sure they give him enough weapons. We have Terry McLaurin, Curtis Samuel spent last season injured, but we know he can be a dynamic playmaker. Logan Thomas, our tight end, a big target. He's a dynamic playmaker. He was injured last season as well. What do you know about this room, and what is it you're going to bring to that room with your game?
Yeah, honestly, not much, but I just know that I can bring a lot of versatility to the Washington football team, and just a guy who's willing to give it all and put his all on the line every single play, and I'm gonna have fun doing it. That's the reason I still play this game, because I just have fun. So I honestly can't wait to bring some energy to the locker room and be with the guys.
Everybody's now trying to sit there and analyze, like, what you're going to be, what kind of a receiver you are. Why don't you give us your own self-scout?
Yeah, a very versatile receiver who's able to play anywhere on the football field. Very savvy receiver, and a guy who likes to think a lot, likes to try to manipulate his opponents, and someone like I said, who's gonna have fun to make.
We're excited to get you here and put you to work, that's for sure. You come from Penn State, Nittany Lions. Shaka Toney, you're joining a fellow, former guy from Penn State. What conversations have you had with him?
Yeah, it's crazy because as soon as I got off the phone with Coach Rivera, I called Shaka, or I texted Shaka and I said, let's get to work, let's take over. So that was my guy. He was literally my neighbor in college, lived right next door, someone I grew a big bond with. And I just can't wait to get to work with him.
And I'll be excited to have you come here. Early on in this process, like, what conversations did you have with Washington leading up to this?
Honestly, not many. I didn't have many conversations with anyone from Washington, really. So it's kind of also a surprise. I'm just really happy.
All right, well, we don't want to hold you up from the party. We know you got a lot of family out there wanting to celebrate this with you. We came out here to Vegas to be able to have this conversation with you, so we're going to get ourselves back to Ashburn as well, because we got to welcome you into the Commanders and the Burgundy and Gold very warmly. Everybody's very excited to have you join us. So we'll see you soon in person. Give a shout out to the Commander fans on what you're most looking forward to doing when you come here and join the team.
Big shout out to the Commander fans. Definitely can't wait to bring some excitement to the organization and see you guys out there in the stands rooting for us.
All right, welcome. We'll see you soon. Go enjoy this night.
Thank you.
And welcome back to Las Vegas, Nevada, site of the 2022 NFL Draft. And while the festivities have ended for the night, there was a lot of excitement in this first round. Things started out with the trade for the Commanders, sending the number 11 overall pick to the Saints and receiving their 16th overall pick, as well as number 98 in the third round and pick number 120 in the fourth round, adding some picks to their overall total. And Julie Donaldson here with you, along with Santana Moss. Santana, coming into this draft, you had said you wanted this team to target a wide receiver. Yeah. We knew that they had to get some help. Dotson, though, not what most people thought, as they said, you know what, we are going to move back to get him. What did you first think when you heard that they were moving back in the draft?
It was a bit of surprise because, you know, I texted you, and when I saw us move back, so I initially thought saying, okay, well, maybe we making this slot open and we got more picks, so we're going to pick that linebacker that I felt that, you know, we might need that can, you know, solidify, you know, and be a good, you know, a force for our defense. But then when you hit me and said Dotson, I'm like, oh, I forgot about this kid. But I told you before, this draft was receiver heavy, and it was going to be a lot of guys in the first round that had great potential that I wouldn't be surprised that they come to us. Now, I know I didn't mention Dotson because he was one of those guys we talked about last week, but when you watch the film, you know, that tells you enough about what the coaching staff saw in him and said about him being our next selection.
Now, you knew coming into draft, he was pretty much projected to go about in the 20s. Yeah. And so they did move back knowing that they could get him in the later rounds, especially since, you know, he didn't, or the later picks. But what is it about his game? When you look at it, you say, okay, what is like the scouting report from you on him?
I mean, when I watched him a couple of weeks ago before one of our shows. But I remember a good friend of mine, his family is based in PA, and they are big Penn State fans. And he would go to the games and say, bro, the receiver up here is, you know, excuse my French, but he said this guy's always open. And I later found out it was Dotson. And so to see that we was talking about him last week, I'm like, well, man, you know, maybe he might be one of these sleepers that no one is talking about that can easily find his way, you know, climbing up the charts. And it's crazy to see that he's here. I got the text already saying, bro, we got the guy that we talked about all year long. But when you watch him, he's just one of those guys. He's a great route runner, but he's always open. Something that he was doing in college, I'm hoping he's bringing it to this level because he found himself wide open, and that's rare. You know, one of the things that we talk about as being a receiver, that you want separation, but this guy was separating at a ridiculous rate. And, you know, I talked about how much I love about Chris Olave and the things that he did, and I was talking about, look, we moved down and he went in that same spot that I thought we should get him. But I'm happy with the pick because I told you before, there was a lot of receivers that was going to be going in this first round, and we couldn't miss with either one of these guys because they all have great potential.
One of the things is you talk about how he's open. He told me, as we just heard in the interview, that he says he likes to kind of manipulate his defenders.
He knows what he's doing.
What does that mean for him to kind of manipulate them that maybe allows him to have that extra step ahead of him?
So one of the things that we do as receivers, you know what your tools, you know, we have a toolbox. And my receiver coaches always tell me in college that, Tanner, you need to have more than 6 different weapons in your toolbox when it comes to getting off the line and setting up routes. And so when he's saying manipulating, he's basically toying with these guys. Maybe he might run a curl route and he might give him a move at the top of the curl route. Then the next time he say, okay, I gave him that move at the top of the curl route, so that defender already knows that every time he sees that move, it might be curl. So now he give him that same head nod, and that defender say, okay, he's going curl, and now he's going behind him. So that's what we do. We toy around with them with different looks, different little sudden, you know, pauses in our routes to see what they take and what they don't bite on, and then we use it for later routes down the line. And that's, to me, just coming from a great, you know, coach, because mostly we get that stuff from coaches. You know, I had to be told to do that thing. Before, I would just go 90 miles per hour trying to beat everybody with my speed and just, you know, my ability. But when you get coached well, so I'm going to give hats off to his coach because someone told him that for him to have that in his toolbox.
He said he's excited to get ready, of course, and go straight to work. How do you see him coming in and complementing the wide receivers we have in that room?
Pressure. It's pressure. You know, one of the things we know, Terry solidified his spot. I'm hoping that we can do whatever he's going to do with Terry as far as getting him signed so we can let him know that he's our guy coming in, you know, to the season. But now he just raised the level of competition in the room. You know, one of the things that I did when I got here, you know, in Washington, I remember being that guy and they gave me all that money and I had veterans in there. You know, I had James Thrash, I had some other guys in the, I can't think of everybody's name, but I remember telling these older vets, I'm like, look, this is you guys' room. I'm going to do what I do. The guy told me straight up, no, tell him this is your room. You the guy that paid the money, so we want to see what you got. And so now you got to think about this guy's a first-round selection. There's other guys in there, whether they was picks of last year or guys we got in the free agency. If you didn't do anything yet, now you have another guy breathing up your back that's coming for your spot, coming for that little bit of, you know, that you're looking for. So it's pressure. And Terry's the only guy right now that can sit here and rest assured and know that his spot is solidified.
And he, I'm sure, is loving the opportunity to have somebody else in that wide receiver room to help him out, and will be soon enough seeing how he does fit in as well. Here's a look at the numbers for Jahan Dotson. Career record 42 games, 183 receptions, 2,756 yards, and, well, he found the end zone a good 25 times. A threat in the return game as well, as he holds Penn State's single-season record for punt return average at just over 24, almost 25 yards per return in 2020. Check out this scene from the draft party out at FedEx Field tonight. Fans hitting the stadium to have some fun and watch the Commanders make their first-round pick. The newest member of our broadcast team, former Washington captain London Fletcher, and my play-by-play partner Bram Weinstein were at the party at FedEx Field. Let's see what they thought of the first round.
All right, back here at FedEx Field, we got a big cheer when they were showing one-handed catches of Jahan Dotson for Penn State, the pick at 16 after Washington traded down with London Fletcher on Bram Whiteside. Okay, are you surprised, number one, that they traded down?
You know, not surprised when you think about Drake London was already off the board, Garrett Wilson was already off the board. Those were the two top wide receivers in this draft coming out. So once they were off the board, now Washington said, hey, there's an opportunity to move back, acquire more picks, and still go out and get a receiver later on.
I mean, the person they were linked to initially, because Ron Rivera was at the Ohio State Pro Day and looked like he was best friends with Chris Olave, so everybody started talking about him. I can't believe how ironic it is that the Saints traded up and took him. That's the spot they took him at.
Right. You know, I was surprised that Olave went to the New Orleans Saints. I thought the Saints were coming up to take a quarterback.
So did I.
So when they took Chris Olave, maybe Washington didn't view him as high as we thought they did.
No. Okay, so they go back and they take Dotson. What do you think of that selection?
I love Dotson. The way I can explain it to you, I'm a huge Ohio State fan. Watching what he did to the Ohio State defensive backs, I'm loving this pick because he was unguardable. He made Ohio State and those number one cornerbacks there look pedestrian.
Okay, all right, so they get the wide receiver. They've been kind of earmarking that. They decided this was the necessary move. The person they passed over to not do it was Kyle Hamilton, who wasn't there at 16 once again for that decision to be made, but was there at 11. Why do you think they decided to go away from that position when it is one of need for them?
Well, I think they valued and they understand they need to score more points. They need another playmaker to pair with Terry McLaurin and also Curtis Samuels, assuming he's fully healthy. In today's NFL, you need three wide receivers. We only had one because Curtis Samuels was injured last year. You have to be able to score points. You have to be able to get explosive plays. Jahan Dotson brings that type of playmaking ability to this offensive receiving corps.
Okay, so they had a lot of questions here. The safety position remains one now, and this Buffalo nickel position that doesn't seem to be filled with Landon Collins not on the roster. Do you anticipate that they're going to do something in the draft to try to address safety/Buffalo nickel?
Yeah, I think they'll draft somebody. I don't know if it'll be in the second round, but later in the draft. I don't think the safety position is as highly rated as some of the other positions of need. I can see them also getting a slot cornerback. So the Buffalo nickel position, maybe you can also put Cameron Curl at that spot, draft a strong safety, and then you have those needs addressed.
Let's talk about your old position group, linebacker. It's played very differently now, right?
Differently.
But middle linebacker does still feel like a void on some level. So what do you expect to happen there?
Here's the thing. I really feel like Cole Holcomb can play the middle linebacker position. Just watching him, his maturation, especially over the last few years. I thought he played it well last year down the stretch. He made some plays. I don't see it as a big of a need as most people do. I think Jamin Davis, with his athleticism, having another year of offseason work under his belt, it's tough for him. You know, he only started 1 year at Kentucky. He's a rookie coming in, being asked to play the most difficult position on the defense, the middle linebacker position. You got to call the plays, get everybody lined up, and still go out there and do your job. That's extremely difficult for a rookie to do. It would have surprised me if they end up drafting a linebacker. No. But in today's NFL, you're only playing 2 linebackers most of the time anyway because you're defending so many 3 wide receiver sets.
You know, a lot of difference in 1 year can be made. Think about the depth that they had on the defensive line and on the offensive line and how different those position groups feel right now with Tim Settle not here, Matt Ioannidis not here, and Jerron Payne entering the last year of his contract. Interior defensive line suddenly looks like something they might address as well.
Yeah, that's a position of need. They're gonna have to draft a defensive tackle because Payne, they didn't exercise his options, so you have to assume he's gonna hit free agency next year. You mentioned losing Tim Settle, Matt Ioannidis no longer on the team. You rotate those defensive lines. You want to have fresh bodies in there. I'm almost certain they're going to draft a defensive tackle at some point in this draft.
How about offensive line? Brandon Sheriff is now gone. This is not as deep a unit as it was. Do you anticipate something potentially interior O-line to be addressed?
Yeah, absolutely. You can never have enough offensive linemen. You draft a guy who can play guard, center, a guy who swing type of guard. Also possibly look to get a little bit younger at the tackle position. You need those bodies. So defensive line and offensive line, those positions will be addressed.
I know we're not surprised they didn't take a quarterback. Nobody did up to the point, but we expected them not to take a quarterback at this point. But Ron Rivera has talked openly about getting a developmental quarterback. Being that none of these top-tier quarterbacks went particularly high, there might be some enticing names in the second round. I don't know if they go that direction, but do you think they get enticed to find the developmental quarterback in a high spot in the draft?
You know, you bring up an interesting point. Say in the second round, there's a quarterback that you had possibly a late first round grade on.
Desmond Ridder, Matt Corral.
Yeah, one of those guys are there for you. Hey, they might Kenny Pickett may fall to him. Then I think you take the quarterback.
Yep. How about running back? It's another spot where, at least at this point in the draft, and wasn't projected, the best running backs in the draft were not going to go particularly high. It's possible Kenneth Walker or the Iowa State running back fall to you in the second round. I think it might be a luxury pick with Gibson and McKissick on the team, but at least it's a thought, right?
It definitely is a thought, and I think it needs to be a thought because you look at Antonio Gibson. Last year he got banged up a little bit, and you need another bigger back to add to this roster. We don't really have that bigger back to spell Antonio Gibson. We got J.D. McKissick who, catches. He's more of a third down back. Jared Payton, smaller back. I would love to see them add a running back with some size.
All right. I can't wait for the booth this fall. It's going to be fun. Me, you, Julie, it's going to be great.
Oh, it's going to be awesome.
I know.
We're going to have a great time.
First year under the Commander's name. Got you in the booth. Get you up in the Hall of Fame soon.
Yes.
We're ready to go.
I love it. Let's do it all. Let's do it.
All right, that'll do it here from FedEx Field. Send it back out to Vegas.
So once again, the Commanders using their first-round pick, 16th overall, on Dotson, a dynamic wide receiver out of Penn State. He fills a need for the Commanders and gives new quarterback Carson Wentz an additional weapon in his first season in Washington. Now, for more reaction, let's send it back out to FedEx Field, where we find team reporter Zach Selby and former Washington tight end Logan Paulson.
Thanks, guys, and we're here at the draft in the aftermath of the pick, and Logan, Mark Mayhew said he doubts that we're going to end up with the same number of picks that we had going into the draft, and sure enough, he was right. I mean, we traded down from number 11 to number 16, grabbed Jahan Dotson out of Penn State. What did you think about the pick? Does he fit into the offense?
Yeah, I think a lot of fans are probably disappointed that it's not Chris Olave, but I think what you got to keep in mind is that no one player is worth multiple players, right? You just increase your hit rate, right? And then when you compare him to Jahan Dotson, me personally and guys I talked to around the league had him higher than Chris Olave. Yes, I think they like his competitiveness, they like his physicality, they like his catch radius. And for a guy like Carson Wentz, I think that's extremely important. A guy who is accurate but not like right dead center mass, right? He's going to shoot it maybe 2 feet to your right, above your head. If you look at guys, receivers he's had a lot of success with, it's guys who can catch that off-center target, and he's got that skill set in spades.
So you look at his stat, I mean, 5'11", $183.
Yes.
I mean, does he fit into more like a slot role? Does he be on the outside? Like, where do you see him kind of fitting in terms of like a role?
I think that's why it's so important to watch film of these guys, because even though he's 5'11", 180 or whatever he is, he plays like he's 6'2", 6'3", 210 pounds. Like, I had to double check his height and weight because I thought, man, he's got to be bigger than that.
Right.
He's so physical over the middle. He's physical at the catch point. And, you don't always need to be the biggest or strongest guy to get that done. I think a great example is like Tyler Lockett, a guy who's great with 50-50 contested catch balls. He reminds me a lot of that skill set, a guy you can kind of hand a reverse to, but also can win on a conventional route tree, which not a lot of receivers can do anymore.
So you talk about his competitiveness. That one-handed catch that he got over at Ohio State. This is what he said about it. I treat that ball like it's $1 million. If I see it up there, I'm going to go get it.
Right.
That's one heck of a quote right there. And you talk about his athleticism. He's really smooth at route running from what I've seen. Do you think he's got the same sort of smoothness as a Chris Olave, as a Garrett Wilson? Do you match up in terms of that?
I think it's different. That's the thing about the receivers in this year's class. They're all a little bit different. And if I was going to compare them to one of the Ohio State guys, it'd be more like Wilson, a guy who's got a little bit more suddenness, a little bit more sharpness, a little bit more power as a route runner.
Right.
Can throw his foot in the ground violently, so not quite as smooth, but again has this explosive ability that makes him really unique and very special as a route runner.
So the big question is, as it is with all the receivers that they were projected the Commanders to take at whatever pick they were going to pick, does he complement Terry McLaurin well?
Well, I think that's the thing. Everyone gets caught up in drafting a big receiver, a skill that's unusual potentially, right? But I think you just want to draft good receivers. That's something I learned from Kyle Shanahan. It doesn't really matter the physical tools. It's like, can they play the position in the NFL? And I think Jahan Dotson checks that box emphatically. I think he's a very, very good football player. He's going to help this offense be better. It's another weapon, another piece for Scott Turner and Carson Wentz to use, and I'm excited about it.
We know it kind of falls in line with what Rivera and Mayhew said on Monday during their press conference. They size does matter a little bit. Yes, they consider a bunch of different factors, but at the end of the day, it comes down to, can you make a play?
Right.
And it seems like Jahan Dotson can absolutely do that time and time again.
And that's so funny when you watch his film. Like, I remember watching his target tape.
Yeah.
And just every single play that he made was a highlight play. It was a one-handed catch. It was a physical catch over the middle. It was an off-target throw where he's falling down making the play. And to me, that is just a nice security blanket for a receiver. And then obviously I'm assuming that they did their due diligence in terms of interview process. I'm sure he's a fantastic kid because that's important to Ron Rivera.
So, traded back. Got the third-round pick, the fourth-round pick. They wanted picks in the middle rounds. They got it.
Yes.
So, now day 2 and day 3. What are some positions they could possibly look at with that second round pick and that new third round pick that they have?
Yeah, so I think the pick that I'm going to keep an eye on for the second round is the Buffalo nickel spot. Everyone was talking Kyle Hamilton. I actually think that the guys in the second round, Brisker, Petrie, Hill, if they make it out of the first round now, are going to be nice value adds there if they stay till 47. And I think one of those guys will be there at 47. And then you kind of answer your question in terms of Buffalo nickel. Also, there's some smaller, more athletic linebackers that will be available then, right, which would be great playmakers that could also fill that Buffalo nickel role. In the third round, I think you're looking for O-line depth, right? And that's assuming that an O-lineman doesn't fall to you at 47. A guy like Ryman out of Michigan, right? Central Michigan, excuse me. If he were to fall, you might take a look at that there. But again, if assuming that doesn't happen, I think Buffalo nickel, and then third round, I think you got to really evaluate the offensive lineman available there. A guy like Daniel Faalele or the kid from Ohio State maybe potentially there to fill a rotational role there.
Yeah, last thing, I think, linebacker might be a position they'd look at probably in that third and fourth round. I like Darian Beavers, honestly. I think he's got the ability to impress. I think he's got ability in zone.
Interesting.
He can tackle.
Yeah.
I think he's got a little bit of everything.
What school?
He plays at Cincinnati.
Okay, there we go. Perfect.
The Bearcats,
excellent.
Man. Yeah, so I think he's got a little bit of everything. You can play off-ball linebacker. I think he fits into that role really nicely. So we're really excited to see what's going to happen in the days doing day 3. Back to you guys in Las Vegas.
Here's a look at Washington's last 5 first-round picks. Last year, they selected linebacker Jamin Davis out of Kentucky, and in 2020, Washington used the second overall pick, of course, on none other than Chase Young. Now, Dotson adding his name to the list. So, taking a look at the remaining draft picks, Washington has the second-round pick, of which Chase Young and Santana Moss will be calling. They did not have a third-round pick because of the trade for Carson Wentz, but because of the move back in the first round, they do add that at number 98. They also picked up a fourth-round pick at 120 as well. Now, we have much more live coverage coming your way. We will be back on with you tomorrow live with more from the newest commander, Dotson, as I have an exclusive interview as he makes his debut out at the park in Ashburn. We'll also preview our second-round pick, which our guy Santana will be making. And it all starts 6:30 p.m. Eastern. That has to be exciting. You're going to be up there on the stage announcing our second-round pick with Chase Young.
Yeah.
Are you ready for that moment?
I'm ready. I mean, you know, they asked me on the fan. It's like, hey, do you have anything in mind? I'm like, nah, I'm going to go up there and get to business. You know, one of the things I'm about just strictly business. I don't have no antics. I don't have nothing. I might get a little, you know, if I see some of our colors in the, you know, the audience, I might have something to say. But other than that, man, me and Chase going to go up there and hopefully that we get a great pick that's going to do well for this team.
Yeah, and Chase Young out here, remember, he missed the opportunity of having his name called walking onto stage, so he will have that moment tomorrow. He was hanging out with some of the fans as well, spreading the love of the burgundy and gold, as we do have the very first draft up and on their way as the Washington Commanders. Hey, thanks for joining us throughout all the activity throughout this evening. We'll be back here 6:30 Eastern time tomorrow previewing round number 2.